I never thought a quiet Saturday morning in my own backyard would end with cops at my front door because my neighbor called 911 for me standing still, not yelling, not playing loud music, just existing. But what she didn't know was I'd been more than ready. And by the time I was done, she wasn't just embarrassed, she was packing her bags. It all started a few months back when I finally got the keys to my first home. Nothing fancy, just a little two-bedroom place in a sleepy cul-de-sac in Southfield. But the backyard, man, that backyard sold me the second I saw it. Quarter-acre lot, backed up to a patch of woods, untouched and quiet. After years of living in apartments with paper-thin walls and no space to breathe, that yard felt like freedom. I had big plans, raised garden beds, a fire pit, maybe even a telescope setup for those clear summer nights. I wanted peace. The first week, I met most of the neighbors, waved, exchanged small talk, nothing out of the ordinary. Then I met her, Carolyn. Mid-50s, tightly wound, hair always pulled back like she was ready for a photo shoot. I waved one morning while I was out measuring my garden layout with some string and stakes. She didn't wave back, just stared, like I'd stepped on something sacred. Couple days later, she came over while I was unloading cedar boards for the beds. Didn't say hi, just said, "You know those attract termites, right?" I smiled, tried to keep things civil. "These are cedar, naturally resistant." She sniffed, glanced over at my yard like it offended her, and muttered something about how the previous owners kept everything very tidy. I told her I planned to as well, just making some updates. She didn't look convinced. It was all little things at first, complaints about solar lights I hadn't even bought. "They'll shine in my bedroom." Her window didn't even face my yard. Then it was my wind chime. "I can hear that during my Zoom calls." I moved it to the other side of the porch anyway. Next day, she left a printed copy of the local noise ordinance taped to my mailbox, with the section about ambient sound highlighted, ironically proving I was fully in the clear. At that point, I started to realize she wasn't just picky. She believed she had authority, like she really thought she had veto power over what I did on my side of the fence. Still, I let it slide. Until one Saturday. It was one of those crisp spring mornings, sunny, breeze just right. I made a cup of coffee, grabbed a book, set up a chair next to my new garden beds, and just relaxed. After about 20 minutes, I stood up to check on the seedlings. Tomatoes were coming in nice. I was just standing there, cup in hand, admiring the dirt, when I hear that throat-clearing noise behind me. You know the one. Carolyn was standing by the fence, arms crossed like a teacher about to write someone up. "What exactly are you doing?" she asked. I blinked, looking at my plants. "You've been out here almost half an hour." "It's my yard," I said, trying to stay polite. "I'm enjoying the morning." "You're staring into my property," she snapped. I turned, confused. My back had been to her house the whole time. "I was reading," I said, holding up my book. "This is a respectable neighborhood. People don't loiter in their yards," she said, like I'd just lit a fire in the lawn. I couldn't help it. I laughed. "It's not loitering when you own the yard, Carolyn." That did not go over well. She narrowed her eyes. "I feel uncomfortable with you just standing there. Either go inside or do some actual yard work." I set my mug down, took a breath. "Look, I get you liked the old owners, but this is my home now. I'm not doing anything wrong." Her response, she pulled out her phone. "We'll just see what the police think." I thought she was bluffing, so I turned away and went back to my plants. But then, she actually made the call. "Hi, yes, I'd like to report a suspicious person," she said, like she was ordering a pizza. "My neighbor has been standing in his yard for over 30 minutes, just watching houses. I feel unsafe." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you seriously calling the cops on me for being outside?" She held up a finger to shush me. "Now he's being aggressive," she told the dispatcher. I was stunned, then furious. "Fine," I said. "Let them come. I'll be right here." When the patrol car rolled up 20 minutes later, she was already on the curb, arms flailing. He's been watching me, and when I confronted him, he got hostile. The officer turned to me. Sir, what's your side of this? I stayed calm. I live here. I was sitting in my yard, reading a book, drinking coffee. That's it. Can you prove you live here? I brought out my ID and utility bill. The cops nodded, then turned to Carolyn. Ma'am, one of them said, he's on his own property, and standing in your yard while maybe annoying isn't a crime. But he's just out there all the time, she protested. If he's on his land, he can be out there all day, the officer said. Then came the real mic drop. Also, we have to remind you, misuse of 911 can result in fines. That shut her up for the moment. I thanked the officers, went back inside, but I couldn't shake the anger. That line, either go inside or do some yard work, stuck with me. Like I was a tenant, and she was the landlord of the whole block. That night, I started reading everything. City codes, ordinances, fence laws. I wasn't going to play dirty, but I was done being pushed around. First, I installed 2 very visible security cameras, one pointed at my garden, one at my back patio, both clearly on my property. The next day, I saw her peeking from her blinds. I waved. Then came the land survey. I had a gut feeling, and turns out I was right. Her pristine fence, 8 inches into my yard, all along the boundary. So I scheduled a fencing crew and left her a polite note. Dear neighbor, survey shows your fence crosses into my property. I'll be installing a new one on the true boundary tomorrow. She showed up at my door within 5 minutes, waving the paper like it was a death notice. You can't do this. That fence has been here 15 years. Sure I can, I said. Here's the survey and the city permit. You're cutting into my garden. No, you were cutting into my land. The next morning, she tried to stop the crew by calling in a city inspector. Didn't work. I had every document lined up. The inspector gave me a thumbs up and left. I watched her curtain snap shut. The new cedar fence went up in 2 days. Tall, clean, perfectly legal, and it cut a weird little notch into her lawn where her garden used to spread onto my side. It looked off. She hated it. Then I started living. Barbecues, string lights, bird feeders, a gentle fountain right in the middle. I followed every rule, timers, decibel limits, no light pollution, but I made sure my yard was active, alive, peaceful. She kept trying, claimed my fountain kept her awake. I turned it off at 8 p.m. every night. Still called the cops. And wouldn't you know it? Same officers. One leaned in to hear the fountain and laughed. Ma'am, that's not even audible from your own fence. If you keep making false complaints, you could face a citation. That's when something shifted. The neighbors who'd stayed quiet all along started coming out. Turns out Carolyn had been running her own HOA without the HOA for years. She'd bullied people into removing toys, feeders, even patio chairs she didn't like. But now that someone pushed back, they were inspired. The couple across the street invited me to a cookout. Someone else put up wind chimes. Kids' laughter started filling the block again. And Carolyn, she vanished. 6 months later, a for sale sign went up in her yard. As she loaded the last box into her car, she walked over to me. I hope you're happy, she muttered. 15 years and now I have to leave. I looked her straight in the eye. All you had to do was respect the fence. She didn't say a word, just got in her car and drove away. And me? I sat down on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the breeze move through the tomatoes. Peace at last. So, who really didn't belong in that neighborhood?